Okay, so I'm going to use the microphone because I want to make sure I will not force my voice. No, I'm going to turn it on. So I feel like that my voice, I can bring it down a little bit. So I will do it just to not frighten you at all. Okay, is it better?
Yes, it's better.
So I can speak like that very quietly. Okay, so just I would like to. So all of you know me. So, but let me see if how this thing appears there. It's still there. Okay. So it's in Portuguese, but for those that know you, don't know me, which almost nobody, well, you are a newcomer, although you are another job to do this morning. So these are my internet connections, and with my personal website, well, and then Miso Music Portugal, which is an organization that exists since 35 years. We organize many things, commissioning, residencies, music festival, etc. We started, when I mean we, means me and Paula, and in other cases sometimes other people too. We started the Portuguese Music Research and Information Center in 2001, which was in fact the last enlarged European country to have a music information center. It's strangely enough, it has very little money from the state, which is completely something about patrimony that should be, in fact, taken care by the state. But so, nevertheless, if you go to mic.pt, like for Music Information Center from Portugal, you will be able to find currently more than 1,000 free scores, and you can browse. You can query the database, and you can have plenty of information about Portuguese music. It's a dynamic website, so behind it's a database. Except for the first page, where is our newsletter, our monthly newsletter. If you don't query the database, you got nothing. So you need to ask for composers, either a date, and it's organized around the concept of a work. So that means the work is the core, and everything turns around. So the work usually has a composer or several composers, and sometimes there are either performers connected to it, or musicologists or something, or books, or CDs or recordings. So everything turns around the work. So if you need to find a CD conceptually speaking is a group of works that are brought together to become a CD. But that's what makes a CD. CD is not a CD. We are not interested in CDs. So we need to find a way. Sometimes there is a lot of discussion around that. And so the other thing is the Som Electric Ensemble, which has our chamber ensemble, which is very, very good ensemble with amazing musicians completely devoted to contemporary music. And so about my work, and it is directly connected with the tonight's performance, South Itinerary. I've been, I say, the multiple craft or labor, and another aspect is electronic culture. So about multiple craft, it is true that very early I started writing poetry. Poetry remained. I was raised in a French school in Lisbon for political reasons at the times of the fascist regime in Portugal in the 60s. And because of that, I had very strong connection with the French language, with French poetry. And when I became adolescent and I start taking more seriously my work as an artist and as a poet, in fact, I was writing in French, and so I was completely a foreigner in my own country. But in fact, somehow it happened. I was studying music from my very early age, and so it happened that I went out of my parents' house very early, at the age of 17. with big fight with my father. And my father was a lawyer, and I speak easily, so he thought that I could make a very good lawyer. And although he was telling me, you need to choose whatever you would like to be happy, and in the end, an artist, how can you going to earn money and to make a living like that? That's no. So please do first become a lawyer, and then you do music as a hobby. But that was not possible. So I fight very strongly with my father at that time. Later on, we had very nice relationships. And so, in fact, to earn money, I really start devoting most of my activity to music, because I could perform. I played a lot of different type of music. I was playing Baroque music, jazz music, improvisation. I was a drummer. My first instrument is a flute. I was playing Baroque flute and Baroque music, but then I was playing drums, and then I went to the Conservatoire in Paris to study percussion. And so I make a living as a musician. So the musician became really much more important than the poet. But still, the poet is still there. It's still here. I'm still writing. And then the performance was really what somehow combined everything. And South Itinerary, what we'll have tonight, is really a very autobiographical work in the sense that it combines all those activities. Another aspect that is important to understand my work is I'm completely relying and dependable on electronic culture. If without electronic culture, without electronic means, I would not be the same at all. I will not do what I'm doing. It will not be possible. And the interesting aspect about that, I will switch to another slide with some concepts, and probably my presentation will stop here, but because it will be enough. It's not the purpose exactly of this talk, is just to bring in some aspects that I will discuss a little bit. But it has to the idea of two aspects about electronic culture. One is that the way the computer allows you to think is non-linear, so it's a kind of a network of relationships. Probably it's the closest as it has been ever in the human history to the way we can think about. The book is very far from, I think, the way we think, because it has this linear progression, and it starts from one point. There is no other way, although some authors start to have books with different paths, different possibilities to go there. Either you take the left side or the right side of the book, or, like then what James Joyce did, Roussel, and others, but still a book, you are tied to a very much linear progression. You go from page 1 to page 1000 or 500. There is no option, even if the path can be try to be not linear. And computer is completely different. You have, electronic culture, and especially with digitization, you have any number of inputs that you can connect to any number of outputs the way you want. And at the same time, digitization, and so the binary system makes that any means, there is a kind of transversality of means, which one of the sentence there, transversality of means that electronic culture allows you, that was not possible before. So you can, in a consequent and even easy way, transform sound input into colors, into graphics, into words, and vice versa. So as long as you devise any way of translation, you can do it. So this, of course, it was very influential to my work, and again, South Itinerary is very connected with that. So it's the fact that from one input that can be poetry, then you can have a dramaturgy developed, and then an image coming out of it, and the sound coming out of it. So at the same time, I think electronic culture has many other, of course, aspects. And another one that is, I think, extremely important is what I would say the intertextual hybridation or in the more specific musical case, what I call intertextual musical hybridation. And in fact, I think that also when we come from, let's say, the oral culture, where we could not have any textual, in the sense of reflection, relationship with ourselves, when with Gutenberg, with the printing of the books, instead of reading aloud, which was what happened, the practice before, you can have your own book, sit in your own corner and read your book and establish a relationship and thoughts and interaction between the book and yourself. So this is really something that changes, I think, the way humans think about themselves, and all the artistic world has been influenced by that. But in the computer age and the electronic age, I think this, then more than just textual relation, you have an intertextual, because of this transversality of means. And so for me, music and poetry were separated for many, many years. And at some point, I think I killed poetry. I think that music took over completely, and I almost stopped writing poetry except for music. So I start writing poetry that somehow is already composition. So the text is, well, then this is another discussion. I'm not going to go through that, although it's very interesting. It has been one key aspect of my thinking about my musical work is the relationships between music and text. It appears absolutely, let's say, natural and trivial, but it is not. Because when a song, is a song, but song is a special type of music. It's different than the other type of music. And in fact, we are celebrating Beethoven's year, 250 years this year. And it's funny because I think that, for instance, in that, looking at music as song and music as such, Beethoven probably is the first composer that really raised music out of the song, out of the opera, out of the lied, to make it completely an abstract development, and instrumental music became at the same level as vocal music, which, in my understanding, was not the case until Beethoven. He was probably the first one to, and also to establish his very egocentric approach as an artist. I do what I want, I don't care about the others, and if the performers, they can't play my music, that's their problem, that's not my problem. So let's take another performer that is able to perform what I just wrote. So it was at that time, it was a different approach that I think is still very much here nowadays. This idea of the kind of the demiurge artist that he can everything, although now it's changing. I think it is changing, but it was in the 20th century and second half of the 19th century, after Beethoven, with all the romantic composers, and on the 20th century is very much the case. The idea that the composer or the artist is a genius above everything, and he does not care about the circumstances, and it's kind of very egocentric and sometimes even very arrogant and even aggressive attitude. But anyway, so the thing I was telling is that so the relationships between text and music, in fact, is pretty much complicated, because the truth is that in the Western music, when you go to an opera, usually in order to understand anything, you have subtitles. Otherwise, you can't understand, because when you take our languages, which are made of phonemes and syllables, when you stretch them, you completely lose the possibility of understanding any meaning from those words. So for me, as a poet and composer at the same time, I was trying to find a way of integration between poetry, or more than that, between semantic aspect of the words and the phonetic aspect of the words. So some composers, they completely discarded the semantic aspect, like Ligeti with Aventure and Nouvelle Aventure, just vocal sounds, no meaning, so there is no conflict between the understanding of a language and Others took different approaches. So I tried to, because I was trying to regulate the poetry in the sense that it's completely just sound, but still there is a meaning. this type of regulation, going back here, it's very much either for poetry or for music what I call the spectral understanding or knowledge. I think this again is connected to electronic culture in the sense that, how can I say that? The fact that we have tools to do analysis of sound, we know we are inside the sound, in the inner sound. We are able then to synthesize sound, and this understanding, it's very about science and technology, really I think has not only changed the way we do sound and we compose sound, but also it has completely changed the way we hear music, sound, music, and so the understanding we can have around that. Further consequences of this, although if you have questions I will explain, but this kind of spectral understanding it comes to the fact that I've been trying. I was raised in music. My musical training was very traditional, so very around instruments, around notes. And when I came to electronic music, it was not nowadays. I was in contact with electronic music when I was 20. So it was not at the age of 10. So it was really a discovery, a revolution. And so I've been trying all the time to somehow work at the same time with what now is called sound-based music when you oppose it to note-based music. I think musique concrète, in fact, that at the times in the late 40s and beginning of the 50s of the 20th century, for the currents, and especially for serial music and serials, all the serialist supporters, they looked at musique concrète like something completely, it's kind of a gadget, an anecdote without any real meaning. Because they were completely connected to the idea of note-based music only. They could not foresee anything else, and even electronic music studios, where by Heimert and where Stockhausen was somehow the leader for several years at the VDR in Köln. It was completely old-fashioned music if you compare to what was happening in France with Pierre Schaeffer at Radio France. And in fact it took decades, and this sound-based music is still under development. But the fact that again I can mix note-based music and sound-based music, conceptually speaking, and in terms of operation, it is directly connected with the available electronic means that you have for analysis, synthesis, and so on. And so this allows me to put together a barking of a dog with a trombone sound, with a violin sound. For me, it's the same realm, it's the same thing. And so it is true for using poetry together with music. It's exactly the same. For me, it's the same thing. I make no difference, And of course, for image is different because I'm working with Paula, but we really interact and we somehow share the same approach in order to the development of image, of staging, as we will see tonight, is really relying on this same type of approach. And so, let's say maybe I will stop here, and I will go more in detail to more specific aspects of Salt Itinerary, and to the concept of what I called, together with Paula, New Op Era. I have not any, but I will write it down because I have not anything here like that. So, New Op Era. So let's make it huge. Here it is. So because I found that most of contemporary opera for me is not really new opera. Most of it is based on the 19th century theater with kind of 20th century music. And in most cases, even by very known composers, the new operas they are doing is because it's very much like doing music, like when you do music for a film, then you do music for opera, which is a strange concept because all the idea of Wagner about the Gesamtkunstwerk is to bring together all aspects of the staging, from the performance itself, the singing, the props, whatever, anything, the visuals you can have, all those things. So the idea for me of integration is completely different than what most of the opera is nowadays happening. And because we will attend tonight's performance, probably I will not show you any bits of tonight's performance because it will be better to see it tonight live. But I will show you a little bit of another opera that follows the same concept, which is called, in fact I will put it here, Love to Cry, and it was commissioned by the Warsaw Autumn Festival in a co-production with a Swedish ensemble called Neo Norboten, and with three singers, Portuguese singers Marina Pacheco and two other singers, Francis Maria Lynch from London and Nicholas Isherwood. So two sopranos and one bass baritone, and two actors, including myself. And so this, I will show you just a little bit of some passage. It's 1 hour and 20 minutes. I will not go to listen to it, but I will show a little bit. This is the beginning. The ensemble is there. The conductor will appear somehow here. Paolo devised a very interesting things with because we need to travel. We did 8 or 9 performances when it was premiered. Then we never did it anymore, as usually with those productions. It's a problem. So inside those balls there was real-time video mapping. So there were infrared lights, LEDs with infrared inside. So we had to put, at that time still it was not the same like for lithium batteries, coming from Japan, we ordered from China, we ordered several, so more than half of them didn't work. So the other ones were not reliable at all. Sometimes they just dropped the charge completely in a few seconds. So we had a lot of problems. But the idea was that you have, and those balloons were moved during the performance, and so with the infrared LEDs and the cameras, they were following the infrared light, and so reframing in real time the video mapping for those balloons. And this one was a bigger one. So, and beside that, there is an aspect about this new op era. It's there is no plot. In fact, somehow there is a plot. Like for tonight, there is a plot. There is a plot about this kind of autobiographical idea, about dealing with what creation is about, what an artist is about, and most of the text is sound. So even the port, of course, if you understand, it's a plus. But I pretend that you can listen to all those things without understanding a single word. Of course, you miss something. I cannot say you don't miss. So, but then I don't. In fact, in Warsaw, we had to put subtitles because the producer wanted absolutely that we have subtitles. But I would like to avoid that as much as I could. But there is no real plot, although in that case it's a very dark piece. It's a kind of a crossing of the night. It starts like that at dusk, with the sun setting. But it ends because we are optimistic with the sun rising. But anyway, it's the crossing of the night. And the characters, they don't represent neither any genre, so they are dressed with a cork suit. We were projecting on the cork, and they had bald caps, and because of the bald caps and the cork, everything is kind of the color of the earth. You know, it's kind of the sienna. We call terre de sienne. I don't know, this kind of ground, desert, almost desert color. And so that's the idea, and there was no such thing as representing the characters. They can be animals, might be humans. They are more or less archetypes of something. You know, not specifically. There is no kind of plot, psychological plot between the characters. You know, for me, it's about metaphysics. It's about Greek tragedy, and nothing about stories. I hate stories. You know, I like poetry. I like just pure communication through art and no stories. But I'm not saying it's not good for those that like it, but it's not my purpose. It's like Itinerary. It's not about the story. I love to cry. It's not about the story. I will show just a little bit the beginning, because we are like animals in the dusk. it a little bit, so it gives you a little bit of the. It was made in a brewery in Warsaw, so everything was built there. It was pretty crazy, but I will just show you a little bit further on. There were some very nice images, but I'm just going to an area, a proper area. Oh, this maybe I will show you this duet. We use exactly the same strategy tonight for the visual part with just those lines, and it's like two sorcerers, invoking the power. The piece is very much about, I'm really against this what is happening in the world now. So. It's very political oriented. It says in all this part that a development is developing that produces an underdevelopment. So more or less, that's the idea. So there is so much development that we are producing a lot of underdevelopment. So anyway, so I will show you a little bit just this duet, which a cappella, 2 voices. The most normal area in this performance.
Yeah.
Just one last beat I will show you. You know, all the voices I've chosen are completely different types of voices, and in terms of vocal approach, there are many different ways of using the voice during the opera. For me, it's important. So this was a very conventional way of singing, but there is just one or two beats like that, otherwise it's spoken, shouted, that and that and that. And I have a solo that I was using. I will come to that a little bit, just about some technological aspects of interaction in this type of works, because this might interest you. And in that case, the solo as I'm doing is using a Kinect, so to track my arms, and in fact, even I can show you how it was made. I have here, let's just go to VLC.
How did you map the beat on the performance without leaking?
Yeah, it leaks a bit, as you can see, but for them it's terrible. In terms of staging, somehow this piece was like a chess board. And they behaved like several chess pieces, like the horse goes like that, and the queen. So it was a kind of crazy, very, 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 how do you say, austerité, very, yes, très austère. It was really to be like that, you know, no fancy things. And so it was very hard because we had lights for all the heads, with iris in the lights. So it was really tiny. So they need to be just there, as you could see in this area. When she was moving a little bit, then you got some color from the video mapping. So the video map was just from here to the floor, you know, with different positions. And the positions were set in that case. The positions were absolutely set, you know. But the balloons, they were moving. We have not seen any scene with them moving, but they move.
You know. Have the same system with the balloons on the performance?
No. So the balloons were one strategy. Well, it was the same. Well, and we had several cameras for the video mapping. We had 3 cameras to control to input the information to the video mapping. One for the infrared, another for the certain positions, and also for some interaction. For instance, this kind of duet a cappella, you know, it was kind of filtering, and according to the filters, then the camera was reacting differently like tonight. It's just with an envelope follower that we are changing some parameters of the video through the audio. So in fact, there's a connection between the audio computer to the video computer with a network, and so the video computer receives envelope follower pitch tracking for changing in real time some parameters. But there was no video capture. There is no video capture in South Itinerary, but there was video capture in this performance. And I will show you a little bit the program that was made. It's just that, and the strategy is anyway, I will just go. When I join my hands, I'm changing some parameters, or I'm freezing my voice. Now I'm changing the program number 2. The sound changes, so the Kinect has kind of gestures that were pre-programmed according to what I'm doing. Is changing something. This was a model we made at the early stage of development. You see, now I'm freezing my voice. There is no voice here, but I'm freezing something. So it frees that sound. And then the arms, the height of the arms was changed, the pitch of and things like that. But anyway, now I'll show you a little bit the program number 3 and so on. It was the way it was working. and I will show you a little bit of the so that's it. My voice. But the system is far from being reliable. Okay, so in terms of strategies of interaction, to finish with, mostly I'm mostly using Max MSP. In this performance we had both Max MSP and Super Collider for I Love to Cry. For South Itinerary, just Max MSP with jitter. And here, with Andrei Bartetsky, and doing the part Super Collider part, Max MSP, and also Open Frameworks. We had 9 computers for the premiere, but then in the end we compile everything to 4. So 5. Yeah, we reduced to 5 computers. We were able, but at the beginning, with all those things, we are so and also. It changed. I remember the first Mac with SSDs came out in 2013. We bought it immediately because we were using a G5. Before it was a huge monster that the laptop could make twice as much. So, and currently, I think if we were going to do it, probably we could do it with 3 computers, maybe. And so one running Open Frameworks, another one Super Collider, or even Super Collider and Max, and then, I don't know. And then some for the audio, others for the video. But anyway, so one thing I use a lot is, there are 2 aspects. One is in terms of software. I use a lot of, like I was telling about transversal means, like to have an input from something, mostly pitch tracking, envelope followers, and things like that change parameters randomly, so to speak, although within a frame that it's completely controlled. The result is always the same, although it's always different. Appears to be the same, typical stochastic approach. Within this frame, you can do whatever you want, but in the end it will sound or looks always the same, but it will be always different. So this is something I use a lot. Instead of having fixed processing, it's dynamic processing. So my voice, for instance, for tonight, as I'm going to sibilants or to plosives or going high in pitch or low in pitch, it'll change quite a lot the behavior of the audio, and then the audio send different information to the image, to the video part. Another thing is, the type of sensor. So in many cases I use either a pedal or a trigger or any device that can send exact information, so I can just go from that position to another position. And in between, I allow some freedom and some error. So using benders, we will use benders tonight, and other sensors in my hand, one of my hands, in left hand. But between that, I have a trigger or a pedal to make sure I'm synchronized exactly with the machine. Another thing I've been using since a long time is a way of having a feedback from what's going on the computer. So instead of having someone at the table saying, "Are you ready?" "Yes, I'm ready." Okay, you can go ahead. Especially during a performance, you cannot communicate anymore. You communicate like that at the starting, but then you cannot go any further. So this was not enough. So in the middle of the 90s, we made a little device, little box. At Azquime, they wanted to buy it from me. We did, no, I will not sell it for any price. No price for this. It was just a simple box with some LEDs, so that we can have numbers and little sentences, like I'm doing with. I will put an iPad for tonight with Touch OSC, and just to know the number of pedals, For South Itinerary, there are like 300 pedals, triggers. I know them by memory, but sometimes it does not work properly, and so you don't know exactly where you are. So to make sure, I should be at number A23 or B42. Look, B, no, it's 43. Shit, I'm already, so don't trigger again. Or B41 should be at 42, so let's trigger again or do something. So it's very useful to have this kind of feedback, And then otherwise there are systems like I will use the Wacom tablet, which is a very old model, almost with 20 years. But it was what was available at that time was A3 format. So somehow, it's not an A3 because it's much smaller, but pretend to be an A3 format, which was great. And in fact, what I'm doing is I'm just with the pen, I'm scrubbing, I do record a phrase of my voice, and then I just scrub the reading head of the sampler and changing pitch without changing speed according to the position in the XY frame of the tablet, or changing the speed without changing the pitch, which in fact it's constantly moving. And
you use granulation for that?
Yes, absolutely. Just granulate. It's just a sample, recorded sample into a granulator, and then I'm just controlling the normal, absolutely trivial parameters of the granulator with the pen. It's exactly that. That's the word. Thank you. And the Wacom tablet is like the same like the Kinect, or any other type of device that you can have to input or to establish an interaction between the device. There are a lot of, you can use a camera to track your movements, and the Kinect is exactly that. It's a type of camera that can see in infrared, so it can see your bones, and because it see your bones, you can create points of articulation when you do that, and according to the position in space, exactly the same strategy. Instead of the Wacom tablet, it's a camera with again a display that you are mapping the display to certain informations. So and so more or less that's it. It's either sensors or tracking devices, and I think most of it, and the important part of it, is really the software. Is what you do inside the software, what you program inside. And I think the software, and to finish with, connecting to the electronic culture, the conceptual idea of software as a binding platform for any type of approach you may have, combining means of interaction, conceptual means, and etc. And so it really relies, it's like you are explaining reality. In fact, it's very trivial because it's what all of us, we are exposed to. It's just the software. Software is ruling our lives. The minds of some people developing software that But it's good when you can develop your own software, so you can also rule the mind of the others, not only being ruled by the minds of the others, trying to rule them too. So, and that's it. So, it was a little bit long, and so, no, maybe not. We start later, so kind of 1 hour. You have any questions, or would like to go any further on any aspect? Just let me know.